Hello, everyone, and welcome to Next Level Leadership, a live stream series to support leaders during this crisis. Last week's episode, we learned how to commit to a higher level of discipline. There were great conversation and great questions. Thank you, everyone, for being here. But today is all about purpose. It's episode 6, Live with Purpose. Warren Rustand will share ways to live with purpose during this crisis to continue your momentum of your life. This is personally a favorite of mine because my purpose is helping entrepreneurs discover what they stand for and the difference they make in the world. Thank you, Warren, for helping me discover my purpose and the impact you're having on the thousands of leaders that are participating in this series that have come together to level up their leadership in this crisis. It's an honor to be among all of you. Each week we introduce Warren. Many of you have seen Warren speak, attended events. Usually goes something like this. Here's Warren. For all of you that haven't seen Warren Rustand, he's former CEO of Providence Service Corporation, served as member of the board of directors for over 50 public and private institutions. Warren has served as appointments secretary to President Ford, global chairman of WPO, co-founder and dean of faculty at EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization Leadership Academy, countless awards, Sports Hall of Fame, White House Fellow, but the award Warren treasures the most is Father of the Year in his hometown of Tucson, Arizona. This is a conversation. Please post your questions and tell us where you're joining from. Share Next Level Leadership with your teams, with your communities, and more than anything, thank you all for being here. We are all in this together. Here's Warren.
Well, welcome. Glad to be here with you today in this conversation. I hope that we can renew our old friendship and we can talk about things that are important to us as we really create the framework and structure for advanced leadership as we go to the next level. All of the things we're talking about are the principles of leadership. And you recall the first big piece of that are the 3 fundamental elements of leadership: clarity of vision, certainty of intent, and the power of values. The next 5 we're talking about, starting with our last session and continuing today, are really about how do we apply them to the principles of the 3 that we just talked about. Commit to a higher level of discipline, our session last Thursday. Today, live with purpose. This coming Thursday, act with intent. Make conscious choices and engage in a cause greater than self. We'll conclude our series. And so we're looking forward to talking to you about each one of these. They're all phenomenally important, but today, the notion of living with purpose is something in which we all have an interest. So what is purpose? How do we think about it? Purpose is the reason which we do something or something gets done or created or exists. It's the sense of resolve or determination. So that's sort of a down and dirty kind of definition of what purpose is. So as we're talking about purpose today, and I'll be giving you some examples of real people, EOers and others, who are a part of defining their purpose and what's happened in their lives, why don't you write down while we're speaking thoughts that come to your mind? In fact, why don't you put them up on the screen so we can see them? Key words or phrases, things you're thinking about. You see, what happens in crisis is that we have a chance to repurpose ourselves. In family, business, community, and self. We have a chance to really rethink who we are and what we want to do with our lives. And it's this notion of finding new resolve and determination. It's finding why we exist, why something gets done, what its ultimate purpose is. So we want to spend our time doing that. And as we talk today, I think you'll find that we truly understand the definition of purpose. It's at the core and the center of everything we do, both large and small. And sometimes crisis is the catalyst by which we repurpose ourselves or discover our own purpose. And as we think about the coronavirus and its impact across the globe, all of us are touched by it in different ways. And so as we think about how we've been touched, does it cause us to think about what our purpose is or has been? And does that change? Do we want to modify it? do we want to start from scratch and really go somewhere else completely? And as I've talked with people around the globe who are struggling with this pandemic, some of whose businesses have been closed, some struggling with their cash flow to keep it open, and others who may be all right as they go through this process, many of them are really thinking about what is their purpose? Why are they here, and what should they be doing? And so it's a classic example of crisis being the catalyst. And that really happened to Christina Scala, my good friend who lives in Littleton, Colorado, a suburb of Denver. Suddenly, she found herself as a single mother, raising her children, the primary breadwinner in the family. Her exposure to EO and its principles caused her to want to start a new venture. Her background in understanding education allowed her that opportunity. And so, with the support of EO friends and family, she created the Aspen Academy, a K-8 school. But she wanted to make it unique and different, fundamentally changed by her exposure to entrepreneurship. So she used the values of EO and the principles of EO and entrepreneurship to really create a new school. It's a school where children have to write a business plan, have to have a business by the time they're graduating in the 8th grade, where they run the school cafeteria and actually buy the inventory of food and serve that food. It's where they run the school store. It's where the students know the vision, mission, and values of the school. It's where the teachers are alive with energy. Christina's created this unbelievable school. I've visited several times. I love being there. And she is the leader. And as such, she's now become an expert in the field. People come from all over the world to study her school and the principles on which it's founded. But her purpose in creating it came from crisis. And let's use crisis. It creates opportunity, and Christina is a great example of that. She's an extraordinary woman and a remarkable leader. And so the first principle that we need to think about, or the first step in purpose, is pursue purpose with passion. We hear a lot these days in common vernacular is to pursue your passion. Let me push back on that just a little bit. I think you need to define your purpose first and then pursue your purpose with passion. Passion is an emotion that ebbs and flows. Purpose is the constant. So let's be sure of what our purpose is. Jeff Neufeld, an EO member from Calgary, Canada, was pretty sure what his purpose was. It was to be the greatest piano player in the world. He's a concert pianist. He grew up laboring, working, practicing hour after hour from the time he was a young boy. And he was very skilled and very talented, so much so that he got a full scholarship to Rice University in music to continue to pursue it. There he met his soon-to-be wife, who was also a musician. They both were playing professionally. And perhaps it was events, his father's death, perhaps it was the reality of the world in which they were living, but he decided to change directions. He bought a small manufacturing company, decided to become a CEO. But as he struggled to be that CEO that he wanted to be the father and husband he wanted to be, he began to drink wine in the evenings. And first it was 1 glass, and then 2, and then 3, and perhaps 4. But he began to use it as a crutch. And it created a cloud over things that he knew were important. We began mentoring together 3 years ago. It's been a great experience for me because I learned what strength and power are all about. He decided in the discussions that we had to become a really good husband, to become a really good father, to become the CEO he really wanted to be, to build his company, and then to make contributions to his community. Jeff decided in that process that he would abstain and give up all alcohol, which he did over a year ago. He's become that really good husband and a really committed and present father. His company's growing really rapidly. He's creating a culture that his employees love to be involved in, love coming to work. And now he's in a position where he can make an even stronger commitment to his community in Calgary. All because he was willing to define his purpose in family, business, and community. He's taking better care of himself. He's lost 30 pounds. He's in the best condition he's been in his life. All of those things help because he was able to define his purpose. So I think that as we think of the second step in purpose, if the first is to pursue purpose with passion, The second is purpose drives our sense of resolve and commitment. This notion that we are more determined because of what we are doing with our purpose. Maybe a couple of other examples of EOers might be helpful. I was in Nepal 3 years ago with my wife and our daughter, and we met a young woman named Elizabeth Tan from Singapore. And Elizabeth's father was a cobbler, and she grew up in a household where he was making shoes, and then where he was successful enough to start a shoe business, particularly for high-end shoes. And soon it was time for her to take her place in the business and began to run the business, supported by her father. She thought that high-end shoes, perhaps the fashion industry wasn't where she wanted to be, and so she wanted to begin making shoes for working people, which she did, and the store grew and other stores came to be. She was running a successful business. She decided to take a trip to India. She's already been fascinated by India, and so she traveled to rural India. She wanted to see the most basic lives of Indians, and so she did. What she found there was that women and children were denied access to medical care and to thoughts of education. So when she got back to Singapore, she began to use the profits of the business to create medical mobile missions for rural India, where she could communicate directly with women and children and give them hope and give them medicine and give them help with their medical needs. She served tens of thousands of women and children in India doing that today. Another perhaps might be more interesting as well, but Smita Valurapalli, who is an actress, singer, movie star in India, had great success. She owned salons and fitness centers, her own lines of skincare products. And she felt like with her success, she needed to help others. And so she created a foundation to help children. And in this coronavirus, she knows that that foundation could be helpful to others. And so she has used it and oriented it in a way that's benefiting people who are in trouble right now. Last week, she fed 60,000 people. She understood her purpose and knew what the foundation was for. And so as we refine and think about who we are, and as you're writing down these thoughts as we're talking today in this conversation, I hope that you can better find your purpose using the definitions that we've talked about here today. In this crisis, you can write and review and think about where it is you're going, because the world will not be the same. It may come back incrementally over a long period of time, but the world is fundamentally altered by these huge geopolitical, geomedical kinds of conditions that travel across boundaries that affect our lives in new and unique ways. So I'd ask you to write your purpose and then start with a few words that are important to you, and then build those into phrases. And when you have time, write your personal statement of purpose. Perhaps write then your family statement of purpose to be sure that you're aligned and be sure you know what you want to do. And I've heard from some too that have been a part of these conversations that perhaps Warren is not touched in the same way that others are during this period of time. But let me assure you that we're touched in different and unique ways. And our family has been too. You see, we have our third oldest grandson who's serving a mission for our church, a service mission in Yekaterinburg, Russia, population 1 million people in the center of Russia. He has the coronavirus as we're talking today. He's struggling mightily to fight the battle. He's been the subject of huge attention and focus by our family. We believe he's going to be fine. But we have to appreciate and understand the people who are going through this. This is a hard, hard disease. This is very difficult. It is very painful. And while we think that he's going to be strong and get through it, he's a fine young man. He's one of thousands, even millions, who's going through this right now. They all need our thoughts. And if you care to join us, they need our prayers as well, regardless of your religious affiliation. But we need to reach out to those people who are affected and be sure they have our support. We want to open it now to questions you might have around purpose or anything else you'd like to ask. And we're happy to talk about those things that are on your mind, perhaps some of the things that you've written down. So Winnie, if we can, let's turn to some questions and interact as much as possible.
Thank you, Warren, and thank you for sharing that about your grandson. Our thoughts and love are with you and your family.
Thank you.
A couple of comments, and then I'll go to some questions. Kent Gregory says, he's talking about purpose, liberating the entrepreneurial spirit for good. And Andrea Herrera writes, always reminded to be my best self when inspired by Warren. You inspire so many people.
Thank you.
So first question is, what if your purpose is not in line with your business today?
That's always a difficult one, because we hope that our purpose is aligned with our business. We're doing exactly what we want to do, touching the people we'd like to touch. But I also know there are an awful lot of people that don't enjoy going to work, that don't like what they're doing. I come from the view that life is relatively short, and to the degree that we can, we should do what we want to do and what we find purpose in. So it's easy for me to say because it's not my business, but what about selling it? Obviously not during the crisis. It's difficult and challenging right now, but what about changing it? What about selling it? What about liquidating, monetizing it in a way that creates assets or resources where you can go do what it is you really have a passion for and a purpose in? Because that purpose brings us such joy and happiness. When we're doing the things we really believe in, it is amazing how good we feel all the time. And we don't feel the stress, pressure, difficulty, challenges of life in the same way because we find joy in what we're doing. And I hope we find that joy in our families, in our marriages, in our significant others, in our partnerships and relationships. I hope we find it in our business, but really think about it. I've always felt like I want to be in the business that I love. I want to drive the car I love. I want to wear the clothes I love. I want to wear my hairstyle the way I want. You probably think that this hairstyle is natural. It's not. It's by choice. I mean, it's phenomenal. And you probably have also noticed over these conversations, it's growing very long. I just don't know what to do with it, right? So we should be doing those things that find us joy and happiness, Kent. And I hope you'll reflect on that and think about, could I do it differently?
Wonderful. So this is from Katty Duragi. She's the incoming Maya chair and very focused on families. And she says, she's talking about alignment and how do you build purpose within your family during this time?
Yeah, during this time, there are a lot of sensitivities around it. Some are frustrated because we're shelter in place or we're locked down and we've been there for 30, 60 days in some parts of the world. And that brings its own frustration. So how do you create alignment in that situation? I think there's also the notion that there are those who work from home anyway and are online most of the time. And so this isn't as new and different and difficult for them. I think the key to alignment is communication. I think we just have to communicate. There will be frustrations. All of us are together all the time. In our family, there are 27 of us that are together all the time on our property. And so 3 generations, and we're having a lot of fun. We're playing games. We're doing things that are exciting and interesting, but we're also studying, we're working, and we also find private space to be alone. And so creating alignment is one of communication. What is it you need, your partner needs, your family needs, and what is it I need? And let's communicate those things. And then let's try to accommodate that in a way that aligns us through this difficult period. Not an easy fix. I think it takes a lot of effort, but then I think we should be communicating better anyway, whether we're in a virus situation or not. Thank you, Katty.
Warren, what are some things we can do to display our purpose in our homes?
Discipline our purpose in our homes?
To display it, to show our purpose, to see our purpose every day as a family.
Okay. Well, again, I think part of it's talking about it, continually talking about it. In the Rustand family, our logo is we do hard things, right? So this is a hard thing. Going through the coronavirus lockdown is a hard thing. And we talk about that. We talk about that's our purpose. We talk about getting through this hard stuff and what we're going to learn from it, the lessons we're going to learn, both personally and collectively. And so we talk about those kinds of things. Frequently, you can even put up, during this time, you could put up signs, you can put up stuff, you can write on stuff, you can do fun things around your purpose to always remind people of there's a bigger cause here. There's a bigger action here. And while the virus is causing us to behave in certain ways, that it's filled with purpose, that there's more to this than just an illness that's hurting people. It is an agent for change for us in our behavior. It gives us a cause to go do things differently. And we should be communicating with our children, regardless of age, about that and how important it is to learn from this experience, because we are preparing them for the next experience. We know there's one coming. 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, there will be one out there. We may not be around to help them through it. So the lessons they have to learn here, they will apply themselves as they get older.
Thank you, Warren. We have a question from Bill Benishek from RLA. He's an RLA graduate. RLA was his first recognition to start with purpose and not being influenced by internal and external emotion. When working with others, what has been your first advice in helping others work on defining purpose?
Yeah, I think it's first to get the classic definition of purpose, right? It's just to understand what the words actually mean. So one of the pieces of that definition is giving you a sense of resolve and determination. One is that which by things get done, exist, or are created, right? So that gives us sort of the boundaries or the guardrails within which we can do it. And then we begin to refine that purpose predicated on the individual's situation or circumstance, and try to use the words that best apply to to that person or that circumstance. Is the word done, created, or existed, for example? Which of those words best apply? Resolve and determination. Which of those best apply to us? And then what are we really talking about? Are we talking about our personal relationships? Are we talking about our family? And how does that fit and work in there? Or are we applying those very words in that definition to our business, which may be slightly different? And so again, to try to create the stepping stones to purpose and defining that purpose. I don't think finding purpose is simple or easy. There are some people who know from the very outset what their purpose in life is. And I used this example before in a previous conversation. We have a granddaughter, our second oldest granddaughter, Connor, who has known since she was 6 or 7 or 8 years old that she was going to be a doctor, treating pediatrics, treating children. She's always known that, right? So she's just now graduating with her undergraduate degree. She's taking her MCAT preparation test. She'll be taking her MCAT shortly, and she'll be going to medical school probably in the fall, but if not this fall, probably next fall. She's known all along what she wants to do. Others, perhaps like me, have struggled with our purpose at different times as I've had different experiences and different opportunities. My purpose working in the White House may have been different than my purpose working as a CEO or an entrepreneur, which may be different than my purpose in working in my community. So I've tried to create purposes for multiple, right? Purposes for family, business, and community that are slightly different and have slightly different orientation. They may have the same value set, but they're different purposes. I hope that helps you, Ken. Thank you very much for the question. Bill, thank you for the question.
That's great, Warren. Can we grab those purpose statements from you at some point and share those to the group? I'm sure they would love to see those. Awesome.
Happy to do it.
So Carlos Marin is talking about what's happening today, and how everyone is stressed, very in a stressful state, and says that it's very easy to distract us from our purpose. How do we get back in alignment?
Boy, really good question, Carlos. Thank you very much. I think for me, and I hope for you, it's the first thing I do in the morning. I have to focus on my purpose because there are so many distractions today. There's so much information coming at us, whether it's political or medical. There's just a lot of data and information. It seems like everything we know about what's happening changes hour by hour, and yet we need a purpose that's more fixed and more straightforward. And so I ask myself a question the first thing every morning when I get up, and some of you know what that is. I ask myself as I sit on the edge of my bed, as soon as I know I'm awake, I open my eyes, I swing my legs over the edge of my bed, and I sit on the edge of my bed for about a minute. And I say, why am I alive today? Meaning, what's my purpose today? And once I can fixate on my purpose, I become much more productive. And I frequently remind myself over the course of the day what I said first thing in the morning. What is my purpose today? And I try to stay to that. And what we know from people and leadership is that people who are focused on purpose tend to be more productive than those who are not, those who are moving after the shiny objects, or those who simply read a new book and are going to implement that, or hear a good idea and they're going to implement that, right? And they're continuously bouncing from one thing to another. As entrepreneurs, we have to be careful. We have so much energy and we're constantly learning new things that always trying to apply that new thing means that we really don't stay focused on what our core purpose is. So that's my thing, is first thing in the morning and several times over the course of the day, I remind myself of what my purpose is for that day.
Why am I alive today? So simple, but so powerful. Question, Warren, from, let's see, we have Adam Glickman here. Adam Glickman's question is, how would you describe the process of recalibrating or re-examining our purpose?
Adam, how are you? I hope your family's well. I haven't seen you for a while, and I hope everything's going well in Los Angeles. I think recalibration is an important part of purpose. I think we constantly have to do that. And I hope we're doing that right now as we're sitting here talking in this conversation, that we're thinking about maybe I need to rethink my purpose. Maybe what's happened to me allows me to do that. Maybe what I've built is now gone or been damaged so dramatically that I really have to think about my purpose going forward. So I think there's a recalibration process that needs to take place on a regular basis. As events unfold, as the life we're living changes, as the world around us changes, let's go back and revisit that purpose to see if it still applies, if it's still good. If we need to change it on the margin, fine. If we need to change it completely, fine, let's do that. But let's not just assume that a single purpose will take care of you for the balance of your life. In some cases, it will. I think maybe for our granddaughter, she's going to be a pediatric surgeon. That's all there is to it. Going to do it for the rest of her life. That's great for her. But my life has taken so many twists and turns, right? Playing basketball, being drafted in the NBA, going to the White House as a White House fellow, being a CEO of multiple companies, being on boards of directors, being a father of 7 children, 19 grandchildren. Everything has changed so much that I continuously refocus on my purpose to be sure that I'm aligned with who I am as a human being. And I'm going to tell you, there are things that'll pull us off course. There are temptations out there that'll dissuade us from our purpose. We got to be tough. We got to be strong to stay on task. It's not easy. I'm not suggesting this is just a simple little game you play. That recalibration from time to time by degrees or by large amounts is necessary. Adam, I hope you're doing well. Say hi to your bride for me and your beautiful twin daughters. Can't wait to see you all again.
So a question that also aligns with what Carlos asked about earlier, and that's Kirsten McKenzie. I guess Kirsten must be here from New Zealand, maybe with Fletch. She says, about to enter week number 5 of lockdown here, and I'm still finding it almost impossible to focus on purpose. What can I do?
Yeah, the lockdown is really challenging. First of all, being married to Fletcher, it would be really challenging to me. So that's your big problem right there, is Fletcher, right? But if you can just focus, pick something each day that you want to focus on. Pick 1 or 2 things over the course of the day that you want to focus on, and try to stay on task with that. I'm not saying that's easy either, because it's just being confined, being cooped up when we're used to going out at will, running, going to the beach, whatever it might be, right? You live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. So it's a challenge for us to stay confined. Also focus that it's temporary. This is going to be lifted. What are we going to do when it gets lifted? What are the first things we're going to do? So focus on activities that are in your future, not just on the frustration of your current state. So I'd say this advice: focus on 1 or 2 or 3 things you know you have to do, you're going to get done, you're going to do them really well for your purpose for the day. And then look out a little further and say, what's my purpose going to be as this changes? What do I want to do? What's going to happen? And maybe that'll draw your attention to your future and relieve some of the pressure of feeling current state is so difficult and challenging. I hope it works a little bit. It works for me. I hope it works for you. But I think it is highly frustrating to be as confined as we are.
Warren, something you said in a previous segment was, who do you want to be after this is over? And I thought that was really important to really think about who's the person on the other side and how to define with purpose.
Yeah, as we come out of this, let's give some real thought to who we are and who we want to be, who we change. Let's make some incremental changes in who we are. Can we be better? Absolutely. All of us can. Can we do things a little bit better? Certainly we can. Can we help other people more? Maybe the virus is teaching us that being closer and more loving as a family is important. Maybe it's teaching us that reaching out to others and being really kind is very important. And maybe it's teaching us that being all in this together as humanity, right, as just a bunch of people from all over the world, all being touched by the same thing, sort of matters. And it breaks down barriers and walls and stuff that we like to build. Maybe we're making fewer judgments about people. And maybe all of that, if we put that all together, makes us a better person coming out of this than we were going into it. I hope that's true. I hope that we're all better. And I know you will be as well.
That perfectly aligns with Don Lamont's question. How do you know if you're making a difference or just wasting your time?
Well, Don, you've gone through some hard times. You're a good friend. And you recently hosted me in Fort Worth. And I want to thank you for your hospitality, and the other EOers who hosted me. It was a fantastic time. I suspect, Don, if you look at your own experience, you went through some hard times. And I'm aware of those. There may have been times when you thought you were wasting your time. But what you discovered about yourself and your faith and your wife, your future wife, after your wife died, was amazing. And it's made you the person you are today. And who you are, you're a titan today. You're an example to other people. I get emotional when I talk about you because I know what you went through. And I'll bet there were times where you thought, this isn't worth it. It's too hard. It's too difficult. I'm wasting my time. But the reality of it is there was a greater plan out there for you, for your family, for your business. And you have built and rebuilt in many ways around family and business that can only be imagined by people. So I'm just really proud and respectful of you and what you've done, and tell you that nothing we do is too small. Everything we do has consequences and matters. Every little thing. So let's do it well. Let's do it intentionally. Let's do it with thought. Let's do it with purpose. And when we do that, we give new meaning to who we are as a human being. There's nothing too frivolous. There's nothing too silly. Let's just go do good works. And you recall what I always say, right? It's not enough to be a good leader. We have to be a leader for good. So let's go out and be that good leader who's doing good for others. And that's where you shine, Don, and you've been fantastic at that. So thank you for the question. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Don, and thank you, Warren. One more question. This is from Asha Al-Batia, who's here with Quran. And the question is, how important is it to communicate your purpose to others?
I think it's important, but it's also situational. We have to look for the opportunity to share our purpose with others. And Anshal and Kran, you've just created this brand new clinic in Houston, Texas, Sinden Hall Clinic. It's just phenomenal. And you're going to do remarkable work for people in healthcare and wellness. I'm so proud that I know about it and I'm associated with it. It's just fantastic. But to tell you that defining its purpose is really important. So that's your business. For your personal, it's also important to define your purpose. The best way to show your purpose is to live that purpose. Not talk about it as much, but live that purpose. And if we all lived our purpose every day, think of the great signals that we would be sending out to other people. We want to be the example and the change that the world needs. And we do that by how we live our lives. And if we can live our lives in a way that matters to other people, they discover our purpose, that's really important. Now, as we come to a close today, I'd like to be able to say that there are 3 things I want to leave you with, right? Pursue your purpose with passion. Once you discover your purpose, once you articulate that purpose, then give it everything you have. The second is purpose drives our sense of resolve and determination. Be resolute in pursuing your purpose in all things. And lastly, purpose takes us and our lives to a higher level, to a different place. And when we do that, we have the opportunity of showing other people there is a better way, a better path. Let's not make judgments about people. Let's embrace people. Let's be kind to people. And let's bring people along with us in our journey in a way that helps them. Our next session together, our next conversation is going to be Thursday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Daily Time. And we're going to be talking about acting with intent, the notion of intentionality in all that we do. How does that manifest itself? And what can we do? So act with intent is next. I just want to thank you for sharing your time with me. I really appreciate it. I'm honored that you'd spend a part of your day with me. And I'm looking forward to our conversation on Thursday. Take good care of yourself.